Are you prepared? Are you planning to send in ground troops?
Well, first let's understand what happened today. We had 150 rockets, about 150 rockets fired at our cities. We had them fired at Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. That's our Washington and New York. So imagine the situation, Aaron, where you would hear a siren go off in New York. I'm sitting here in Washington, you're in New York, and in Washington, and everyone would have to run into bomb shelters. That's what happened today in Israel. The objective of this mission is very simple. We need to restore deterrence, we need to end the rocket fire, and we need to restore security to Israel's population who have suffered under rocket attacks from Hamas.
So when you say that, given what's been happening and how the situation's been escalating, you know, some might say, well, in a sense, what you're saying is it is going to be all-out war, because how are you going to be able to do that, given what's been happening, without greater involvement, without ground troops? I
don't think the situation's been escalating. I think Hamas has been escalating the situation. My Prime Minister Netanyahu, made clear last week that if quiet would be met with quiet. If Hamas ended rocket attacks against Israel, then we wouldn't take operations. That did not happen. We had 100 rockets fired at us yesterday, and every sovereign government has got to take the action necessary to protect its population from rocket attack. It's completely unacceptable. We appreciate very much the strong statement that was made by the White House today, backing Israel's right to defend itself. I think all the world should stand with Israel in making sure that we can protect our civilians and act against Hamas. It's a terror organization, Hamas. There's no moral symmetry between Israel fighting against terror and a terror organization that's fired thousands of rockets at Israel's cities.
And Ambassador, of course, the White House did make that statement. State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki did as well. But when you look at the other side of this, Palestinian sources say 2 of those killed today by an Israeli attack were children. And obviously, even if they were part of a human shield, they had put a human shield to try to protect somebody that you said was a Hamas militant. But there were children there. Is it still worth airstrikes when you're going to have to kill children?
No, well, first of all, we do everything we can to keep Palestinian civilians out of harm's way. That's the difference between us and the terrorists. They deliberately target our civilians. They fire at our civilians. They also hide behind civilians, as you say, using them as human shields. They actually place missile batteries next to schools, next to hospitals, next to mosques. That's the enemy we're dealing with in Hamas. So we take action. We have targeted well over 100 targets, maybe 200 targets in Gaza today. Every single unintentional casualty is a tragedy. We don't seek to harm Palestinian civilians. We go to great lengths to keep them out of harm's way. We send text messages to them.
But you're saying it's going to happen.
We make clear where we're going to hit, and hopefully these people are not in any area next to a missile. I have seen myself how many times Israel decides not to do an operation because civilians are going to come into harm's way. I don't believe, Aaron, that there is a government in the world, a military in the world, maybe in history, that has gone to such great lengths to keep the civilians of the other side out of harm's way.
The air assault that's happening does follow the recent killings of teenagers on both sides, and that's important to emphasize. It has been on both sides, and of course the beating of Tariq Abu Khadr by Israeli police. And Tariq, as you know, Ron, is an American teen. He was the cousin of a Palestinian victim. And you talked about this case on Fox News Sunday, and here's what you said, Ambassador.
From what I understand about the facts of the case, this is not just an innocent bystander who was pulled off of a schoolyard. He was with 6 other people. They were masked. They threw petrol bombs and Molotov cocktails at our police. 3 of them had knives.
Does that excuse the force used by officers?
No, and I said actually on the same interview that it doesn't excuse excessive use of force at any time. And that's why we have an investigation and we have a justice ministry. We're a real country, Aaron, with laws, and we will investigate exactly what happened. But I would be very cautious to rush to judgment and to say that this is a larger problem within Israeli society. We had protests all across Israel, and our police were facing life-threatening situations. Fortunately, we did not have a single killing. We had not a single Palestinian who lost their lives in any of those protests, Israeli Arabs or Palestinians who were protesting. Our police are facing a very, very difficult situation. It does not excuse excessive use of force, and I am not saying that it does. But this particular boy, I would not rush to judgment because he was part of a group of people who had attacked our police officers. And everyone who has rushed to judgment about Israel, hold your horses. When all the facts come out, it will tell a very different story.
Wait, but see, this is where I get confused, because on the one hand you say the excessive force isn't justified, but then you say, wait, wait till you hear what happened. And it sort of sounds like you're saying it is going to be justified.
No, it's not justified. Again, once he was arrested, we're dealing with a different reality. Once he was in custody, once he was in handcuffs, no excessive use of force can be employed. The question is what happened before the arrest. And I have watched the news for the last couple of days, and people have painted this as if this was some innocent kid who was just sort of pulled off a schoolyard and our police were looking to beat somebody up. That's not the case in this case. Doesn't excuse action after he was handcuffed. I saw the videos. They disturbed me very much. There's an investigation in Israel that's going to deal with it. But don't turn this into an innocent child with police brutality en masse in Israel, because it's just not true.